Today we're going to be repairing a 2008 MacBook Pro 17-inch. To any of you who have had this model of MacBook Pro and have been unfortunate enough to suffer from their poorly designed graphic cards, I'm going to show you how to fix it. What happens is the machine's solder melts apart and your graphics card no longer makes connection, and you get this nasty little sleep light that doesn't ever go away. And nothing comes on. Your computer sounds like the fans are going to turn on. You can hear the hard drive spool up. But when it comes down to it, nothing works. No matter how hard you try, how many things you do, it just does not come on. I'm going to show you how to fix that. For this repair, you're going to need a standard household heat gun, a Torx T6 screwdriver, and a Phillips 00. We're going to start by unplugging the power supply and removing the 10 screws on the outside surrounding, 4 on here and 2 in the back. Following the removal of all 10 of those screws, close the lid, flip it over, remove your battery, remove the 4 screws along here, the 2 screws here, the 4 screws that previously held in place your RAM door cover, 2 screws there, and you're ready to take your machine apart. Just gently lift, starting with the back, and work your way forward. Some of you might need a plastic spudger because the clips that are in here are pretty tight. I've removed the case top to this a couple of times, so it's not too difficult. I like to lean it forward and reach under and unplug the ribbon cable that attaches your keyboard. They're taped down from the factory. Just go ahead and pick that tape up and carefully set it out of the way. Now what you've exposed is your logic board, your RAM, fans, inboard, outboard card, your speakers, and your hard drive. Now I'm going to start by removing the hard drive. There's 2 screws here and here that hold down the straps on the hard drive. I've already removed those. Gently lift your hard drive out, unplug, and set your hard drive aside. Now is the time I like to remove my RAM. Press these 2 pins over and remove card 1, and the second set to remove card 2. Careful with your RAM. Alright, now that we have most of the parts out of the way and the logic board exposed, I'll start to remove components. Right here you have your Intel 2.4 gigahertz processor, which is what mine has. Right here we have the NVIDIA video card, and we have the Intel onboard video card. The NVIDIA is the one that's causing problems. So from here we're going to go ahead and move all of this out of our way and set up to reflow the 2 video cards. Following that, we will add new thermal paste to all 3, replace it back on the heat sinks, put it all back together, and have a working MacBook. Okay, now that we have most of the stuff that we don't need out of the way, I like to use household tinfoil and make a crinkled bed basically. something to support the logic board so it doesn't burn your table, so it disperses heat evenly. Doesn't have to be anything special. We're just trying to make sure we can get even heat dispersion. So next I'm going to go ahead and clean off all the existing thermal paste with some Q-tips. Make sure you got all the thermal paste out of the way. Don't be scared to use a little rubbing alcohol if you have to. I tend to use 91% rubbing alcohol, isopropyl. Pretty much you can soak this logic board in isopropyl and you won't have any problems. I just like to use a little bit to make sure all that existing residue is off of here. Use the dry end of the Q-tip to get the residue off. For the most part, the alcohol dries relatively fast. It'll be just fine. Now for the fun part. We get to overheat a very expensive piece of Apple hardware. Take your heat gun, start off on low. Little circles work wonders. I'm going to focus on the NVIDIA chip because I know that's the one that's got the problems. Solder doesn't melt until 430 degrees Fahrenheit or 230 degrees Celsius. Junk solder, which is what I believe Apple used on this specific chip, melted 183 degrees Celsius. So it's going to take a while. Bear with me. And while that cools, I'm going to go ahead and slide it aside and get the case to the MacBook back up here and clean off the thermal paste from the heat sinks. Sometimes the heat sinks won't come off of the logic board as easily as they did for me. Alright, from here I'm going to go ahead and thermal paste there, and there for the CPU and the two video cards, and then reassemble the laptop. I use Arctic Silver 5, and you just want enough on there for good heat reduction. You don't want to over paste them. I see a lot of people doing that in tutorials these days. Alright, make sure all my cables are out of the way. truth. And we have power. We have boot, and we have a MacBook that was previously broken with a bad video card. It's now booting. I installed a solid state drive when I put it all back together because I wanted it to boot quickly. I'm not a big fan of how slow hard drives boot. Solid states are still pretty slow in these older MacBooks, but they beat the hard drives by a lot. And there you have it. Reflown logic board on a 2008 MacBook Pro 17-inch, now working as the day it was purchased. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you have any tutorials you'd like done, any information or things you'd like fixed, please leave that in the comments below. In the next couple days, I will be doing a video on how to clean a water-damaged MacBook Pro 13 and how to remove a 4-digit firmware password from just about any MacBook. And this is not the brute force method.